J Hood Creative here again. Thanks for coming back, and thanks for the great welcome that I've gotten in the community. It was great to get my first video out there and get such a great reaction out of it, doing what I can to improve as I go along the way. And thanks to Chad at 90 Miles from Comics and Comic Head 84 and Jeffrey Comic Con Henson for letting me go down the slab down with those guys and have a lot of fun there. But let me tell you, if you don't like long intros about the comic community or blood on covers, you're going to love this episode because we got none of that. I've been asking myself, why do I collect this stuff? Now, I've kind of narrowed my focus to just do comics now, but I've got tons of collectibles like Star Wars toys, Batman toys, collectibles like statues, posters, you name it. Just like all you guys, I've got a bunch of stuff. And as I go through it and I just see it in bins, I'm asking myself, why am I keeping it? So I've been thinking about it, and it kind of reminds me of a story that my father told me about this pocket knife he had. And it wasn't necessarily the story of the knife itself, but the knife had a story behind it. Now, this knife wasn't just pulled out of his pocket. This knife was stored in a Pabst Blue Ribbon hat. And when I say it was a Pabst Blue Ribbon hat, I don't mean a hat that had like the Pabst Blue Ribbon logo on it. I mean, it was a hat made of Pabst Blue Ribbon cans that were crocheted together to the form of a hat. Inside this hat, he had that pocket knife. He had other things like decks of cards, just all kinds of stuff that meant nothing to anyone but him. And he was able to kind of share the story behind each thing. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. I've got a lot of stuff that it kind of sits in boxes, is important to me, it's cool, it's all got a story behind it. But if I don't tell it, it's just a box of junk. So that's kind of what I'm going to try to do with some of my content on this channel. As we go, I've got a few other things planned, some other topical kind of episodes to do. But when it comes back to just putting out a normal episode or chapter, whatever you want to call these things, I'm going to concentrate just kind of on the stuff I've got, tell you the stories behind it. And the first story I'm going to tell you is my origin story. And to do that, I need to show you my Grail. After I show you my Grail, I'm going to show you some other cool books too. Before we get into that, we're going to take a quick zoom around the room just so you get a read for the space that I work in. And maybe that will help fill the mind's eye with the stories that I'll have to tell. So this is my workspace. Got my computer set up where I do Photoshop work and things like that. My YouTube videos, of course. A bunch of books and Star Wars collectibles on the shelf over there. I'm a sucker for anything that's Han Solo, especially in the Stormtrooper uniform. Millennium Falcons, TIE Fighters. Now, this box over here behind my chair is my treasure chest. This is where I've got all the stuff that I've gathered from cons, whether it be programs or just little flyers, giveaways, posters, etc. My workstation where I do my hand painting. My mini-me, my little daughter, Bailey, it's her workspace. In the far corner over there, we've got basically it's kind of like a comic book staging table. Books that need to be put away. The stack of books that's there now are the books we'll be talking about tonight. Some books I want to sell, some books that are new that just, like I said, need to be filed. Books that I want to read. Down in front of that, I've got several boxes of books that are worth owning, but I don't want them anymore, so I'll be either selling them or giving them away. And then over in the far corner, that's where my Grail lies. So let's start by defining what is a Grail. Now, Grail means different things to everybody, but to me, what it means is it's that thing that is so hard to get, it's always out of reach. Whether it be too expensive, too rare, too hard to get home. This is a combination of all that. You see, my grail isn't any individual comic, it's the whole rack. Now, the reason for that is one day it struck me, we don't have spinner racks anymore. If I ever wanted to have that experience again of flipping through comics in a spinner rack, I'd have to get one myself. If any of the people that I knew, maybe I wanted to introduce them to that experience, they'd never know it. So why is that experience important to me? Because when I was a kid, we'd go to a corner grocery store in a one stop sign town, and my job at the grocery store was to go down the cereal aisle, pick out the best combination of fruity, sugary goodness with that best prize in the bottom of the box. Hand that to mom and go stand at the spinner rack and pick out maybe a glorious beauty like this. Look at that bright blue. Who could pass that up? Batman versus Batman? And that's just killer. So, like I said, if I wanted my kids to experience flipping through comics on a spinner rack, I had to have one. Opportunity presented itself a few years ago. I saw a listing on eBay. The guy was local. He was asking for a lot more money than I had. But when it didn't sell, I got in touch with him. This was in the days before they had make an offer. So I got in touch with him and said, "This is what I've got. I'm in town. I can come get it." And he took me up on the offer, so I brought it home. I told my wife, I explained it to her like this. I said, if I'm going to go through a midlife crisis, I don't want a hot rod. I want a spinner rack. Look at that. Look at that. It doesn't even have to be a key. It doesn't have to be a key. It just has to be that Batman logo. Look at that bright blue, the bright yellow. Killer Neal Adams. I stocked the rack with books that would have been available when I was a kid. Some of them are the original books I bought off the rack. This Teen Titans, I bought off the spinner rack. Bought this X-Men issue off the spinner rack, this very one. You know, if you're ever looking through anything, say Bronze Age or earlier, and you notice you might run into a book. My ASM 300 is like this. The entire book is gorgeous, perfectly flat, except for one serious ding right there, and that was caused by the spinner rack. Because kids would come through and flip through them like that. So we got to know, me and the neighbor kid got to know that if you wanted the book that was in the best shape, if they had a stack of all the same issue, you always pick the one in the back because they had the least amount of that in it. But we're going to talk about books like this. These are two books that I remember having as a kid at age 4 years old. I'll touch on these books and a few others. So, I just wanted to maybe share some of the books I had when I was a kid. Some were bought off the spinner rack, others were bought at garage sales or were handed down. And a prime example would be a comic like this. I judged my comics as a kid by how many colorful superheroes were in each book. And a book like this Defenders issue is a great example where we've got, 500,000 characters wailing on each other on the cover, and it continues through the whole book. Or maybe something like this. Even as a young kid, I find that I was attracted to anatomy. I mean, well-drawn figures. The work of Neal Adams, Jim Aparo on Batman, guys like Jim Starlin on Captain Marvel. The amount of color involved. I mean, you think about the primary color palette on Captain Marvel here. He's got blonde hair and a red and blue suit. It doesn't get more attractive than that as just, a wee lad. there was always room for the ladies too, on occasion. An issue like this of Wonder Woman, where Wonder Woman's fighting herself on the cover, Batman's there trying to figure things out, and the Justice League guest stars in the whole thing. Or could be a book like this. This was my favorite Batman comic as a young kid. All 4 of these books have been rebuys, and I'll explain that in a minute. But notice how I've had this sign on the cover there by Dick Giordano, Nick Cardy, Denny O'Neil, and latest by Joe Giella. And a few things appealed to me about this book. I love that Batman logo. That Batman logo is my logo. I loved the bright blue of the Batman suit, the blue on the gray, and I loved, thanks to, like I said, guys like Neil Adams and Herb Novik carried on the tradition here of the billowy Batman cape. I loved the billowy Batman cape for some reason. My Batman had to have the long ears. Maybe not as long as Bernie Wrightson or Kelly Jones would draw them, but, you know, Neil Adams style. Looking back, Neil Adams had a big impact on the artists I like in the books that I read. Even though at the time I didn't know the names, I couldn't have, picked a book by the artist at that point. I mean, I was younger than 5 years old at this point. I always found it kind of peculiar. The Golden Age Robin, I had that pebbly kind of underwear shorts thing going on. Never understood what was up with that. But the biggest thing that I liked about this book, and as I was waiting in line for Joe Giella's autograph, you know, I was looking at the cover, and I was thinking, you know, it's a shame I didn't get Carmine Infantino to sign this at some point. That would have really been the icing on the cake, because he drew, this has got the reprint of the Blockbuster fight, you know, the classic Batman cover with the red background and Batman coming down on Block, and he's fighting Blockbuster. So this book reprinted it. I didn't know that book existed, but this reprinted it. I really like that story. But as I was waiting in line for Joe Giella, I flipped through it and noticed that I had indeed gotten Carmine Infantino to sign the book at one point. It's funny how we forget these kinds of things. But yeah, I don't know what it was about this Blockbuster story that it just really stood out. So these books were rebuys. You know, we all have kind of events in our lives that we can use to kind of measure where we were in life. In this case, when I was 5 years old, we moved from the house I was born in to the house I grew up in. And during that summer, I stayed with my grandparents as our house was being built. And we had a garage sale that summer. And at some point, I realized that comics themselves were worth money. So I had a stack of comics, you know, about that thick. And the garage sale was coming, so I was like, man, I could sell my comic books at $0.25 a piece, get a whole bunch of money, and go buy more comic books. So I put them out in the sale, and I don't know, I went to the grocery store or something with my mother or something, and came back, and my stack of comic books was gone, and my grandpa was kind of minding the shop. I was like, Grandpa, where's all the money for my comics? And he gives me $2.25, and I'm like, this is just the price of 2 of the books that were in that stack. What happened? Where are the rest of my comics, or where's my money? And I had no idea as a young kid, a 5-year-old kid, that garage sales were all about deals. You don't pay the sticker price. You buy in bulk for a pittance. And I think that gave me a complex to the point that I never wanted to sell my comics after that. It's probably why I have a hard time parting with them now, even though I might have some I don't even want. And so I think we've all had people that have encouraged us in this hobby and have given us books along the way. And this is one case where a relative of mine on a vacation, you know, he gave me a comic. I can't remember if it had a cover on it at the time when he gave it to me, but I always loved it. You know, Superboy getting mixed up in Phantom Zone. And so I've rebought it with the cover on it. So there's that one. I think the same person also gave me this book, and I think it was probably in this condition. It's missing the whole cover and half the front page. Notice the little handwritten note at the bottom. $1.50 worth 3 comics. So at some point I had probably seen an ad and found this, looked in the indicia and found this issue number and saw that it was listed in an ad for $1.50. I was like, yeah, this one's worth 3 comics. I was young. So this is the rebuy with the cover intact. I really love that cover. The colors are gorgeous. It gets tricky when you get to a book like this. Doesn't even have the front cover on it. So it took me a while to figure out what it was. And the thing that always fascinated about this book to me was this backup story where Batman appeared and Clark Kent was kind of taking him, I think, on a tour of a prison or something. And as it turned out, it wasn't the real Batman. So it took me a long time to figure out what issue it was. I think I had to use Comic Book Database to figure it out. And this is the book with the cover on it. This one was always one of my favorites. I'll put that back up just in case I need it. This one was always one of my favorites. Again, missing front and back cover and several pages. But it's got Golden Age reprints of Stars and Stripes. The story I liked, one of the stories I liked the best was this one, where it reprints the second appearance of the Teen Titans and introduces Wonder Girl as a member. I really love that story. Like I said, the more colorful heroes within the pages, the covers of the comics, the better. And then it's also a fan of things like this. Old Legion of Superheroes. So this is the rebuy with the cover on it. It's another really gorgeous cover. I believe Nick Cardy drew that one. The red really pops. For being one of those big, 100-page issues, it is in really pretty nice shape. Again, the more heroes, the better. I also found that I liked any books where the heroes were under the heel of the bad guy. In this book, the Justice League is reeling from an attack from aliens from outer space, and Aquaman's got a fin. I don't know where the fin came from. A mermaid tail, merman tail. You can see the Flash. I think he's on Black Canary's on crutches. Flash has got a bandage around his head. Even Superman's kind of reeling, and they're all hanging out in the Justice League satellite, and they're like, this satellite will be the last bastion of humanity if the Earth falls. And I'm like, get off your butts and be the Justice League and go down and whoop some tail. They complain a lot about, there's the rebuy, they complain a lot about Hawkman kind of abandoning them, and as it turns out, he was going to find Hawkgirl, who had some kind of weird virus or something, and just like the War of the Worlds, she comes and her virus spreads to the aliens and then somehow rejuvenates the heroes, and that's how they win in the end. This is a cool issue of Brave and the Bold. Batman, Green Arrow, and the Metal Men all involved. A cool purple cover. This one definitely had the cover on it when I bought it. It's one of my favorite Legion of Superheroes stories where, uh, spoiler alert, uh, Ultra Boy, the first page spoils it, but the cover has the mystery. But the Ultra Boy, something's happened where he's kind of believed to be turned bad, so the whole Legion is out after him. The book's drawn by Jim Starlin again and inked by Joe Rubinstein. And then this one, I believe I bought this one in a 3-pack. You know, you used to get them in the little plastic baggies. And in this one, we've got Princess Projectra is suffering from something. So all the heroes have to take a crack at giving their energy to save her. But if they give their energy, they go mad somehow. And somehow, by the end, they prevail. Karate Kid gets his Karate Man suit in the issue. Then also had a backup story where an everyday kid gets a Legion flight ring, and I always thought that was cool. So by the end of the story, he's saving the day for the Legion. Anyway, that's the original version, and I rebought it and took it to Mike Grell to get autographed. And this is an interesting story. So I'm having him autograph, and I tell him this is one of my favorite comics from when I was a little kid. And he's like, so he signs it. And he says, "Oh yeah." So he starts flipping through the pages. He's trying to remember what the story was on, and I told him it's nothing probably real, memorable. It was just mine, one of the few comics I had, and I really loved it. So as he's flipping through the pages, he smeared his autograph, and he turns it back over, and he kind of yells at himself, "Oh, Grell, you idiot!" And I didn't even realize what had happened. He's, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, I'll take care of it." So he did a little remark of a Superboy head over the smudge, and then re-signed it, and I think it says, "Grell, you moron," in the word balloon there next to Superboy's head. That's pretty cool. These are just a few other random issues that I had when I was a kid that I have not rebought yet. I always thought it was cool to have the Earth 2 Robin in a very Batman-esque uniform, gray and yellow and blue. This was another issue that was given to me by an uncle. He'd come to town every summer. He didn't drive, his wife drove, and they were coming several hundred miles, and he'd pick up some comics, a handful of comics on his way, and kind of just let me have them when he was done with them. But this reprints some of the classic Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing. I think there are 3 issues worth of stories in there. Just as a kid, I was probably 9 years old maybe. It was just mind-blowing. This is another one of my favorites. This is actually kind of a hard book to find, especially in a decent condition. But this is the last issue of the original Teen Titans run, but it also retells their origin, which is pretty cool. And some of the last few I'm going to show weren't even mine. When I was a kid, I was lucky enough to have a next door neighbor that loved comics and Star Wars just as much as I did. So we'd play Star Wars and we'd look at each other's comics. So the copy of this we had was coverless, and it was the neighbor's, and it ended up on our garage stoop, and we'd sit there on the stoop and just flip through it, and just pass the time. And once my mother came along and she was cleaning things up, and she's like, "Here, you need to put this away." And I don't know, I was in a mood where I didn't want to listen, wasn't obeying. She wanted to get my attention, and she ripped it right in half in front of me, and I just screamed because she ripped a comic, and B, she ripped a comic that wasn't even mine. But many years later, I picked up that issue. And one of the things I liked about this particular one was the Superman story where he's taking on the internet or the interstellar strongmen. Again, Superman's going to be beat by these guys. It never happens. Superman always wins in the end. But I picked this one up a while back. This is the original appearance of that story. And then we all remember these, right? This particular one was really cool because it had things like a Neil Adams Batman story in it. It had a cool Jim Aparo horror story. A Carmine Infantino Flash. Even had work in it by Alex Toth and Joe Kubert. But the story I always loved the most, for some reason, was this Superman one, where Superman was dying. He came up with some Kryptonian flu bug or something, and he was dying. So all of his friends come and help him out. Everybody from Supergirl to Lori Lemaris and the Legion of Superheroes. They're all coming to do their best to try and help him out. And this is one of my latest pickups from about a month ago at the Indianapolis Comic-Con. It's a real nice copy of the original story. So, yeah, let's make this a tag video. I would like to see. Are you kidding, Jay Hood? A tag video? That's the best you can do. Tag videos like a contest video without prizes. But you know what? I've got 100 subscribers. That's worth celebrating. So let's have a contest. So here's what I'd like for you to do. If you're a YouTube content creator, make a video about your 5 favorite comic books. I'm not talking trade paperbacks. I don't want storylines. I want individual issues. All right? So subscribe, make a video, leave a comment telling me that you've made a video. For non-content creators, if you have a channel but you don't post content and you'd like to participate, go ahead and leave a comment of your 5 favorites, maybe a few words about why, and I'll enter you into a secondary drawing. So we'll have everybody that enters will go into a drawing, and the winner will receive what I'm going to call a Jay Hood curation. So what is that? That is a prize package based on me watching your content and finding stuff I think you'll like. And when I say stuff, I mean, don't expect a lot of monetary value. It might be there, might not. But we're going to do a sketch by me. Maybe it's a sketch cover, maybe it's a sketch card. We'll see. I've got autographs I'm going to include, not mine, other famous artists and writers, people you'll appreciate, and something old, something new, nothing borrowed. There might be something blue. We'll see. But yeah, so have fun. I look forward to seeing what you guys post. Now, let's see how this video ends. None of the books I've shown would contribute to my top 5, but I'll be showing my top 5 soon. But hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for, like I said, giving me a try. If you like this video, hit the like button. Please subscribe. This is actually take 2 of this whole video. I wasn't real happy with the results of the first one, so I actually did the drawing that I mentioned last time for the poster. Did that a few days ago and recorded it, so I'll tag that on to the end of this one. But we'll get that taken care of. So remember, faith, family, comic books. See you next time. Alright, remember last time, guys, I said that whoever commented on my first video would get this poster. I'm also going to throw in some other little goodies, but we're going to keep this low tech. Harper and Bailey are going to help me with this. Got everyone's names that left a comment either on the video or on my IG post. I've written the names down. Like I said, low tech, we're just going to cut this apart.
That's really short.
It is still sharp.
I want to try though.
Well, you need to get bigger and much more experienced before you get to play with one of these knives, because it's very easy to cut yourself. And I've been doing it for years, which means that I just jinxed myself and I'm going to get cut the next time I use it. Alright, so there are all the names. We're going to use this little Christmas box.
Can I see it?
Do you see anything in there?
No.
No magic rabbits?
No.
Okay, Harper put all of them in there.
And I get to take one out.
Yep, Bailey's going to take it out. Let's put them all in.
One at a time? Seriously?
I know, right? Just shove them all in.
No.
Oh, you're going to be dramatic about it.
Ah!
Stop.
Daddy.
Yeah, you see yourself.
Yeah.
You were so silly. Alright. Give the box a big old shake. Alright, Bailey, pull the name out. And who we got? Oh. TJ, the Slab Dragon Watson.
Let me see. TJ.
So TJ, I'll be sending this out to you. I'll throw in a few other things. Hopefully they'll live up to your standards.